Dear Bruce, welcome.
Thank you, Monica. It's so good to be with you. Thank you. Thank you. It's a lovely invitation to get both to be here, to be interviewed by you, as well as that specific invitation of my story. So I'm old. I'm a lot older than you, Monica. So I don't want to talk too long, but I have a lot of stories I could tell. But my path of consciousness, I think of it as really being lifelong, of course, like all of us. But there were key moments, and in my teenage years were the key time when I felt both a kind of a tearing apart and a opening up. And it was at a time in the history of America when we were fighting about a war. The war in Vietnam was ripping us apart as a teenager during those years. It was terrible thinking we were killing all these innocent people in Vietnam. They'd done us no wrong. Why were we murdering hundreds of thousands? And at the same time, our Black brothers and sisters were not being given the rights that they deserved. And so there was a lot kind of ripping us apart. And at the same time, there was a lot of awakening because the music of the era, the Beatles, Motown, there was a lot of cultural renaissance going on of new ways of thinking and getting out of the box and exploring new ideas. And hippies. We had hippies, people who were saying, all I care about is love and peace and flowers and no war. And so it was a very rich time to be of that age. And that's when it was starting for me to realize there is a world beyond what the society is telling me. There's a way of seeing, perceiving differently than just through our normal human senses. And the journey for me was a combination of how I was responding to the war in Vietnam. Two of my brothers were in Vietnam. Both of them were wounded during the war. They both survived, but they both died young. They were only in their early 50s when they passed away. So I was very affected by all these things, but also kind of searching for there has to be something more than just war and brutality. And so that's when my heart, although I didn't think of it as my heart yet, but my heart was encouraging me to keep on going, keep exploring. Learn about more other cultures. And I started studying some Asian philosophies and Chinese literature and Japanese poetry and some Buddhist ideas and Taoist ideas. And it was a time of feeling like the way I normally would perceive, I have to question that. And I was getting a sense from some of the books that I would read, especially books around the yoga traditions and Hindu traditions, that there's a whole other way of even perceiving life, let alone God, let alone our fellow men and women and children, a whole different way of even perceiving even how my consciousness works. I was getting a sense of that. And I remember one book in particular that was very, very influential for me, which was a book called The Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, who was the first Indian yogi to come to the West and begin to teach those ideas. And he was extremely influential to my view of life, because what he was about as consciousness was really different than what I thought. I mean, as a teenager, I didn't know what consciousness was. Even the word didn't make much sense to me initially. But little by little, I realized there's a whole nother domain of what the mind is capable of, what the body is capable of, and what the heart is capable of, beyond the limiting thoughts that we tend to have about ourselves. So that's kind of where the journey started. And I didn't know what I would do in my life in terms of a profession. People would say, what are you planning to be? A lot of kids my age I know I want to be a doctor. My brother knew he wanted to be a doctor when he was very young. Other people knew I want to be a teacher. I want to be a whatever. And I thought, I don't know. I don't know. I think I want to maybe be a minister, but I don't know what church would take me. I think I'm too unconventional for a church. So that probably won't work out. And then I got interested in acting, and I was already a musician, but now I decided, well, maybe I should try singing. And as a kid, I never wanted to be on stage, not at all. I was not a theater kid that knew all the plays, knew Broadway, not at all. The opposite. But suddenly in my last year of high school, something started to awaken, a new path. And a few months later, I was given the lead role in the high school musical. And that started a process where 2 years after that, I was given the lead role in the longest running musical in the world, which was running in New York City. So at age 19, just after high school, 2 years after high school, I was now in a major show in New York City as one of the lead roles. And it was the longest running musical in the world. And I was suddenly in that world, and my whole everything was different. And it was, how did I get here? But I found myself over time realizing those interests in consciousness, in spirituality, in God, if there is such a thing, that didn't go away. And the more success I enjoyed on stage, the more I realized in my time away from stage, I wasn't thinking about my next show, my next job as an actor. I was thinking about what books I needed to read next about spirituality and consciousness and health and well-being and fasting. All these topics were what really interested me, and psychology. And little by little, I realized that was more important to me. The study of my own consciousness, the expansion of my own consciousness was more important to me than the skills or the talents I had as an actor and a singer and a dancer. And so I left that career completely. In 1978, I retired. I was 25. I retired and moved to California, to the San Francisco area, because I knew that in this part of the world, this is where a lot of people come to grow and to learn and to develop. And many of the movements around psychology and spirituality and human potential were founded in this area. And I'm pointing to this area because I live here again. As you know, I moved back not too long ago to the San Francisco Bay Area. And so the journey started again. The journey of my own consciousness, developing, expanding my own consciousness, started once I had started living here in 1978. And so that was not only a very important period of my life before I came here, but then once I got here, the old life was completely gone. I was no longer an actor, no longer a singer, no longer a dancer. I didn't do any of that. Now I was a student. I was studying about consciousness. I was studying about energetic fields. I was studying about bioelectrical magnetism. I was studying about pyramid energy. I was studying about ankhs, divining rods, and pendulums, and something called your electrovibratory body. This was all what I was studying as part of a university out here in California, which also had a publishing company. And so I was very involved in learning and helping to guide some of the work eventually. And it just became more and more, this is what I am supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be learning about this. And then I realized later on, I think I'm supposed to also help talk about this, teach about this, share about this in some way. And eventually I realized that career I'd had on stage, even though I wasn't meant to just be an actor or a dancer or a singer on a theatrical stage, that skill of being able to be in front of an audience and express through beauty things of my heart, that skill could be transferred to this new area. I was comfortable in front of an audience. And now if I could talk about something that was meaningful to me, not just playing a role as an actor, but something that was meaningful to me, I had skills to be in front of an audience and to have fun and to enjoy myself and to make it fun for an audience. So I found that while at first, when I left the world of entertainment, I was kind of baffled. Why did I even do that? What was that about? I didn't want to be an actor as a child. And I suddenly found myself doing it. and then decided I didn't really want to do it. I thought, why did I even do it at all? And then I realized I needed to learn those skills to develop parts of myself I couldn't find in a book. I couldn't find going to a workshop. I had to experience becoming a singer and what that took to learn how to sing and all the practice, all the discipline to be able to get good enough to be in a long running show. I had to refine my skills as a dancer to be good enough to practice and practice and practice and keep trying to improve and keep expanding and growing. And so that skill in learning things that were not in my comfort zone is something that transferred later to kind of my spiritual life and the path of consciousness. But I especially realized all of that time that I had spent learning how to act, learning how to improvise, learning how to dance, learning how to move with grace, learning how to be flexible in the face of problems going on. Those skills were not just about being on stage. Those skills were about life. And so those were skills I could share with anyone. And they were useful as I got involved with business, as I later got involved with HeartMath. And so the journey all made sense later on. Although at the time it was like, why did I do that? Now, why am I doing this? It wasn't linear. It wasn't obvious. Oh, you go to high school, then you go to New York City to be in musical theater. No, that's not normal. So it all did make sense eventually as life went on, but it wasn't obvious when you're going through it, what the higher purpose is a lot of the time. I found many times in my life, I had to just surrender to, this is what is. It'll be clear eventually why this is what it is now. There's something to be learned from this. Just surrender, just allow the process to unfold. And that's not easy to learn because us humans like to control things and like to have certainty and like to have certain rules that we can live with. But life doesn't quite work that way. We have to learn how to unfold, and we have to learn how to let go of our mindsets, let go of our limitations that we've inherited from our parents or from whoever we may have learned them from.
And always is a spiral. We get new stage in the spiral, sometimes return to the beginning and restart again, integrating another level, the information, the skills.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not just one step above the next, and it often is kind of a swirl, and if you can stay outside of it enough, you can see that it is expanding and there is growth happening. But a lot of times when you're in it, it just feels like you're going around in circles. It's hard that the circle maybe is getting a little higher each time. And of course, sometimes we are stuck. Sometimes we do get stuck in patterns and we're not really making progress. But I think ultimately, as long as you stay alive in the heart, keep your heart open, keep releasing expectations, releasing hurts, then movement can continue to happen. Otherwise, it just tends to be stuck, looping around. Sure. Well, one of the biggest parts of my life that I haven't really discussed yet was the time with the HeartMath Institute that you mentioned in your introduction of me. And I became part of the HeartMath Institute 35 years ago. And I had known the founder already, and he invited me to be part of the original team. And HeartMath, of course, is famous for all the research that we did to prove that the heart is an intelligent system and that our emotional state impacts how our heart functions every moment we're alive. And that our heart, because it's such a powerful organ, it's the core of who we are in so many ways, our heart is also therefore affecting our brain. So HeartMath made these connections and were able to prove scientifically, yes, all that is true. The heart has intelligence. The heart does influence dramatically how our brain is able to function, and our emotions are part of it. So if we're in a loving state, our heart is able to function in a very smooth, very harmonious way. Therefore, what the heart does as it beats, as it sends blood throughout the body, when we are happy or when we're feeling joyful or loving, the heart is able to communicate that energy to our brain, let alone all the rest of our body. So we were the ones that discovered in the early 1990s that if you're happy or feeling appreciative, your heart floods the body, your entire body, and especially your brain, with all the right biochemicals, all the right energy for you to function at your best. And people intuitively know this is true. When you feel gratitude, life is great. When you feel loving, life is great. You see things more clearly. We often think more clearly. We often can make better decisions when our emotional state is positive. HeartMath also proved that when our emotional state is stressful, because we're anxious or because we're fearful or worried, our heart does not like that. It's hard on our heart. And we all know what it feels like when suddenly you're frightened. I took a nap earlier this afternoon, and there's a sweet cat in the house. And I was just falling asleep, and suddenly the cat jumped on me. And I jumped. I had an instant sort of fright because I was just dropping off to sleep, and the cat jumps on me, and I did not hear the cat before it landed on me. So in that moment, my heart was racing. We all know that feeling. Anytime we're stressed, the heart goes into a sort of chaotic rhythm because the stress doesn't feel good and we're disoriented and we don't know what to do and we're not happy about it. And so the heart is now beating in a chaotic way. Well, the brain receives that chaotic beat of the heart. So do all the other cells in your body. So we don't make good decisions. We say things that we regret, that we didn't mean to say. And even physically, we can bang into something or accidentally drop something or trip and fall because we're not paying attention. So HeartMath figured all that out and realized that if we can practice loving more as we breathe, that can bring more stability into our heart and therefore our entire body, but also how we think, how we see ourselves, how we see the future. So that's, in essence, a core of HeartMath. So I've been working with those ideas for 35 years, was part of the team developing those ideas, teaching all over the world. And Africa, Europe, Asia, North America, all over the place. And so it's been a huge part of my life is both learning and developing these ideas and techniques, but also just practicing them myself. And as you know, I had 2 years of very challenging health issues with cancer. I had staph infections in my blood. I had to have both of my hips replaced. It didn't happen like every week, but over 2 years, a lot was challenging in my health. And inside that time period, my mother also passed away after many years with Alzheimer's. So it was a very, very challenging time, a lot of grief, a lot of worry, a lot of fear. I used my heart as much as I could during that time when something new would go wrong or a new diagnosis. How do I get myself back to balance in the middle of cancer, in the middle of my mother's decline, whatever the issue may have been. So I was trying to remain as positive as I could, but it was still quite challenging. And eventually I made a big decision, which was I was CEO of HeartMath while I was going through these health problems. And I made the decision towards the end that I would step down as CEO and no longer be part of the management of HeartMath. I still would support it. I would still teach it at Stanford and other places around the world, wherever I might be traveling, wherever people wanted me to come teach it. I would do that, but I wouldn't try to manage it anymore because I'd been very sick and I knew I needed to heal. And having had both hips replaced, just the process of learning to walk again on both hips that now are artificial, that takes some time. That's not, you do it once and you're done. That's months of getting stronger and stronger and little by little, day by day. So I put my own health and recovery first for a while. And that all kind of completed in late 2011. And I was teaching a lot and coaching in executives and working with Stanford, working with different organizations that wanted my help. And little by little, I kind of realized I wanted to sing again, and I wanted to dance again, and I wanted to be the creative guy again. And sure enough, my body wanted to do this. So I began to perform a little bit. And I had a partner, as you know, Gary Malkin, who I developed the What Makes Your Heart Sing project with Gary. And we were performing in front of large audiences. So I was doing something that really fulfilled me, which was to sing and to express myself through music and through sharing stories. Now I was a cancer survivor, talking about what that was like. Now I was walking around on 2 artificial hips and telling people what that was like. And then I was dancing on 2 artificial hips, and people were like, those are artificial hips? You can dance that well, and you had your hips replaced? Wow. And so little by little, I realized my life has now kind of become a bit of an inspiration to some people, because I survived a couple of very dangerous, life-threatening conditions, and I didn't give up. And I realized if I will open myself up and keep letting go of trauma, keep letting go of times I felt hurt or felt abandoned or whatever I felt, try to keep letting go of that new energy, new love, new more and more consciousness could kind of pour into me. And it made me want to be even more creative and want to teach in new ways. And that's when I started offering the course on creativity, which you took. That was probably close to 10 years ago. And little by little, I just kind of kept trying to say to myself, you are alive. You didn't die. You are alive, and make the most of every moment you are alive, and use the gifts that you have as much as you can, because they are your gifts in this life. Use them. They weren't just about when you were a kid. No, now dance, now sing, now be as fully alive as you can be. And so that's what I had been doing. And I moved back to New York, as you know, because I had an album of new original music, and part of the old me kind of wanted to be in New York again. And I had the opportunity to perform many times in New York with old friends from Broadway days and new friends as well. And it was quite exciting period. And then COVID happened. I was in New York when COVID happened. For your viewers who were in cities when COVID happened, that was a hard place to be for COVID, because it didn't feel safe. It just didn't feel safe. That where did you go to protect yourself? If you were in the country, you could be anywhere and kind of safe. But in the city, I was living in a 50-story skyscraper apartment building when COVID happened, 50 stories. And so the only way to go up and down was on an elevator. Well, the elevator, you're with people that might get you sick. You couldn't really, So all of that happened. But to bring us up to the course and what's happening now is, for the next several years, life was very strange. COVID was very strange. Everything was changed. And all of the things we were used to that were certainties were gone. And I had adapted. I was running a small university for a while and doing other things. But little by little, I realized I needed to come back here. I needed to come back to California. I'd been away for several years, but I also felt like life was not getting easier. COVID had revealed all this strain in people. Some people that are completely against all science, other people that are completely against all spirituality, people that are completely against all human rights. I mean, just very extreme positions. And life it feels like it's more uncertain than ever. And I'll look back at my life and think, I feel a lot of stress. And yet I have been studying and teaching about how to deal with this for 50 years. How are people dealing with this that don't have 50 years of background? It's humbling. I'll have a rough day sometimes, and I'll think, how are people who are in this country now afraid that they will be arrested for no reason and hauled off to another country? That's happening in America today. I don't worry about that. I'm white. I'm from this country. I don't worry that I will be arrested out of my home, but that's happening today in this country. And I don't have to live with that fear. There are people that have to live with that fear. There are other people that live with the fear of their own illnesses or the well-being of their parents. I don't have that fear at the moment. So how do people deal with all of this that's coming at them, at their own lives, their own financial concerns, whatever the issues may be? And so not quite a year ago, a few things happened for me. I had another big health challenge. I was diagnosed with kidney stones. Now, it's not cancer, but anyone listening who's had kidney stones, it's extremely painful. It's agony. It's really, really painful. And there I was in Florida, a hurricane. I was living in Florida. A hurricane was coming to us, and I was diagnosed with this very painful condition. And I was walking along the beach one day. The hurricane was far away. I had left my home. I evacuated so I would not have to deal with the hurricane. And I was dealing with my body that was in a lot of pain. I was aware that there were millions of people who had all evacuated out of fear about the hurricane. And there was just this general sense of despair in the world a lot of the time, no matter what country you're in. And I was feeling all of this. And as I walked out on the beach this one day, I asked the ocean, give me some information, give me some wisdom. I need help. My body does not feel good. I'm worried about the world. I'm worried about this country. Help. And I got a message. And the message was from the ocean. The message was, generate waves. Don't just feel waves. And to me, for me as a person, as a man, I feel a lot. You know me, Monica. I'm a very feeling. I can feel just absolute sorrow about something that's happened to someone anywhere in the world. And I can be tearing, I can be crying easily. And on the other hand, I can be just, oh my God, look at that fog, right? Look at that coming in. I can just be overwhelmed by beauty. I feel. But sometimes the feeling, I can be kind of stuck in worry, or I watch the news too often sometimes, and oh no, not that. No, all those people now are going to be, they're going to suffer because of that. And I can get stuck in a mood that's anxious or worried or angry, or whatever. And so for me, the ocean said, generate waves. Don't just feel waves. And as I walked along the beach, I thought, that's right. I know a lot about waves. I've been studying the waves of the heart. I know that if I can be a loving person, my heart is better. And Monica would feel better if I'm loving as opposed to being stressed out. Generate waves. Don't just feel waves. And as I was walking along the beach, and it was a beautiful day with the waves coming up on the beach, I thought, I know a lot about waves. I'm a dancer. I love the ocean. I need to teach about waves. And as I'm walking along the beach, this word came to mind, and you already mentioned it. It's called vibrato. And as a singer, I knew the term vibrato because singers like opera singers or people that sing like Broadway style, the tone has a little wave in it. So it's like this. So a normal tone of a voice would be ah, but vibrato means it sounds like this. Ah, you hear a little wave in the tone. So most singers want to have that wave. It sounds more beautiful in most cases. But also with a violin or any kind of instrument, you can add a little bit of a wave and it makes the tone more beautiful. And that's the meaning of vibrato. Add a wave to make it more beautiful. So I'm walking along the beach. The ocean has told me, generate waves, don't just feel waves. I'm walking along the beach saying, I've got to talk about this. I've got to help people with this idea. And then vibrato, that's what you're going to call this. Add a wave to make life work better for you. So it was November of 2024. I first taught vibrato for the first time. I led a class called Vibrato. And now, thanks to this beautiful platform called the Shift Network, which it's based here in the US, but 180 countries. They've had hundreds of thousands of students from all over the world. So I'll be teaching a course starting on Thursday, July 10th, called Healing with Heart, the vibrato method. So the vibrato method is what I began to develop on the beach that day, only about 7-8 months ago. But it was the result of a lifetime of paying attention and learning about the heart and learning about breath and learning about how to release, let go. I've had to do that so many times in my life. Let go of your mother is gone. Let go. Your brother is gone. Let go. Your marriage is ending. Let go. You can't be CEO anymore. It's time to move on. Let go. Let go. And I thought I need to help people with this because we're all struggling. We're all dealing with more chaos and more feelings of overwhelm. And if we have wonderful friends in our life we can talk to, that's fantastic. If we have wonderful things we do, like dance or swim in the ocean, that's fantastic. But we don't have all those things. So the vibrato course is to give people techniques from the heart, how to breathe, how to let go of the energy that's otherwise going to accumulate inside us. We need to let go of that every day. We need to keep letting go so that we can be you're a mom of a son who's now 26, you told me. You want to, every day, you want to be the best mom you can possibly be. And if we're accumulating too much stress from the world and other people's worries and fears, we can't be at our best. So vibrato is to kind of let's clear out the energy that's accumulating, and let's add a wave to life, add more gratitude, add more beauty, add more compassion to oneself as well as to anyone that needs it. And I think just one last thing I'll say about the course is that it's 7 weeks long. It's just once a week for 1.5 hours every Thursday. But part of why I like the fact that it's 7 weeks is, as a dancer, as a singer, as an actor, I learned you have to practice to get good at anything. You're not going to, I didn't have one singing lesson and then I could perform for 800 performances on a Broadway show. I had many lessons, many times I needed to practice so I would get better and better. And then I would get good at it even when it was hard. Like, how do you sing really well when the audience doesn't like you or the environment is harsh? How do you do it then? And so by practicing, you can do it when it's hard. And that's what I learned about the heart as well. It's one thing to be loving when it's beautiful, when it's a beautiful day, when you're with the people that you love. It's another thing to be loving when you're with someone that you don't care about or somebody that's being very angry towards you or being aggressive towards you, being loving then, that's much harder. So in this 7 weeks that we have together, and it's going to be a great group, there'll be dozens and dozens of people from all over the world, all of whom are interested in this idea, all want to be there supporting one another and learning from one another. So I'm very excited and I feel blessed that I get the opportunity to work with people in that way. Well, thank you, Monica. And as we learned earlier, you and I have known each other for 18 years. That's really wonderful and remarkable. And we've stayed connected all these times. We've never met in person. We've been on Zoom calls many times and other kinds of connections, texting and whatnot. We've never met in person. And to me, it's as strong a connection as ever, even though we haven't seen each other even on Zoom for a while. So to me, it's a tribute to your love, your growth as a human being, as a mom. I remember hearing different challenges you had over the years with life. And a lot of people listening would have no idea some of those things that you had to deal with, but we were friends. So you shared, as I shared with you, some of the big challenges of my life as well. So I'm very grateful that you've given me an opportunity today to share again and to be with you again.